Hey fellow woodworkers, this is Frank and welcome to my shop. Are you looking for a drum sander, or have you ever thought about using a drum sander in your shop? Well, in this tool talk we're going to talk about the Powermatic 2244. It's a new tool in my shop. I'm going to go into the details of getting it, setting it up, and running it. So stay tuned to Tool Talk. So I've been contemplating for quite some time about getting a drum sander. It's been on my to-do list for quite some time. So I did some research and took a look at several of the different drum sanders that are out there. And the one that I decided on was the Powermatic 2244. And you know, all the drum sanders that I saw out there were all very good sanders. There were a lot of single sanders, single drum sanders, and I also took a look at a couple of double drum sanders. So you could do it in a first initial sanding on the first drum, like about 120 grit paper, and then put 220 on the second drum, so you're taking off a little bit more stock, and then that last 220 pass is your final pass. But you know, when I really took a look at it and listened to some of the feedback from some of the other people that have them, you know, there really wasn't a need to go with the double drum. So I ended up going with the Powermatic, the 2244. The main reason for going with that one is I love the bed that actually is the area that gets tilted up or down in order to run parallel with the drum itself. Where the rest of the ones out in the market, at least that I could find, the drum that's cantilevered is the area that gets moved up and down to stay parallel with the bed. So that's the difference with the Powermatic. The bed is it runs up and down to be parallel to the actual cantilevered drum. So I got it from a local machinery here in the East Coast named Wilkie Machinery. If you guys ever work with them, great folks. Kurt's a great guy. I've been working with him for, oh my gosh, many years. I've got some of their Bridgeport equipment. So I actually called him up and ordered it through him and got it delivered. And it came a gigantic crate, as you can kind of see here. The delivery was actually pretty easy. It came in on a straight truck with a lift gate, dropped it down to my shop, and then from there I took it, put it on a dolly, kind of struggled to get it into the shop to make the threshold, but brought it into the shop and then had to commence taking apart the crate. I'll say that, you know, they did a pretty good job crating up this drum sander and protecting it. Even on the bottom of the skid, where the drum sander actually sat on top of, they had a piece of like of aluminum paper at the very bottom that helped to keep any kind of moisture coming up from up underneath and getting it rusted. The nice thing about it as well, it wasn't full of cosmoline. So for those of you who have ever had to take a cosmoline off of a piece of equipment, that is not fun. And then, you know, I took the boards apart and repurposed the plywood and cut up the 2x4 framing and using that outside to burn. Mainly, the only thing I have to say is there was mold that was growing on the 2x4s themselves. So that's about the only complaint that I can make. So let's go ahead and get started going through the manual, and let's set up this Powermatic 2244 together. I'll go in detail by the manual. I haven't seen any other video out there on the internet that goes in this much detail, so stay tuned. Hopefully it's something that is of interest to you if you're looking at purchasing the Powermatic 2244, or if you're just looking to purchase a drum sander and want to see what's out there. Okay? And try to be a little more animated in my videos. I've got a couple good friends of mine that said, you know what, you're as stiff as a board. You need to be a little more animated. You know, I pretty much am in life, but I guess, I don't know, as you're making these videos, I'm trying to be very instructional, maybe too instructional. So anyway, we'll try to have a little bit of fun. So let's go ahead and get started and get this, this drum sander set up. So this is where I decided to go ahead and put the sander. So So I'm going to take my planer, and I've kind of got a little bit of a curve to it in my ductwork. I'm going to go and straighten out that curve and basically come straight off into the planer. So I'm going to move my planer. I'm going to say it's going to be about a foot closer to my outfeed table, which is going to be fine. I really don't go around that area anyway. And then that makes room for me to go ahead and take the 22-inch drum sander and literally put it right next to it. So that way I've got the same type of infeed for my drum sander as I have for my planer. So let's go ahead and get started to disassemble and disconnect the planer and repipe it and put the drum sander in place and get that all piped up, ready to go. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I unplug the power. And then I'm going to have to go ahead and take down my strips, my zip strips, cut those off, loosen up the wire, and start disconnecting my ductwork. This is what's really nice about this NordFab product. You can basically take the clamps off, move the pieces around, put on different angles, joints, 45s, 30 degree, 60 degree angles. You can do pretty much whatever you want. So it's really easy and simple to go and maneuver and change your shop around and change out the NordFab piping. One of these days I'll do a video specifically on the NordFab and kind of show you what I did and how I set it up in my shop. Okay, so I got the Y in now, so the straight piece is going to come down to my planer, and this right angle piece, I'll put a gate onto this and then a machine adapter and hook that up to the drum sander. So I'm going to have to cut a piece of the adjustable pipe for the Nord fab in order to get it down to the right angle. So if I get something around, I don't know, 15 inches, I think that'll work. Okay, so I went and took the piece of Nord fab pipe that has it's kind of got like a ribbed end, that's how it clamps down to each other. And I cut it off and I put the little rubber washer on there, which is it's kind of the same as having a rib on the end of the pipe. When you join two pieces together, you'll see when we have another rib here, it'll actually act as if you put two ends together. And this is an adjustable, so you can go and lengthen, you know, within the pipe how far you want to get your fine tuning. You can line things up exactly within a 1/16 of an inch. So let's go ahead and get this thing set in place. Bring our little rubber washer down. Kind of roll it up. Next, let's see, I'm going to get I got my blast gate, which is what I want. And next I got to do is going to be my right angle, my 90. Get a couple clamps here. This is the clamp style that goes around the Nord fab. You can see it has like a I'd say weather stripping on the inside, and when you put that around the two ribbed ends, it actually gives it a very good airtight seal. Okay, this one on here. There we go. And lastly, get the last piece. Okay. We've got that clamped so that we know exactly where that needs to go. I'm going to line up, make sure it's straight, and then I'm going to line up my planer to it. And that looks pretty good there. Step back and make sure it looks fairly well lined up. Looks pretty good. It's pretty straight. Okay, so let's go ahead and first initially clamp it down to the machine. Make sure we got a good tight connection, and we clamp her down in place. Okay, next I'll bring this rubber gasket up. Get this lined up, and we'll make that connection. So now we've got the planer hooked up. So now I've completed changing out my Nord fab dust collection system, that I had set up for my planer. I didn't go into recording all the different little details. Again, I'll kind of go into a different video relative to my NordFab. Now, one of the things I did change on here that I lose a little bit of the capability is on this system, I did have a 45 that actually came off and then came to the joiner, I'm sorry, to the planer. And what that allowed me to do was to be able to use these top rollers to put boards, you know, for multiple passes. As you can see in this setup with that pipe there, that limits that capability pretty much to a small board, roughly about 8-inch board I could put here or on the other side. But that's okay. I have carts that I can use to put off to the side as I do my planing. So that's not going to be much of a capability loss for me. And so what I did is I ended up having to reroute my electrical power, and I basically came along the top and came back down and plugged it in here. But you can see the Y connection I put on here for the drum sander. And let me back up here and kind of show you what the whole setup looks like. And you can see I decided to put that drum sander right next to my planer. It'll give me that opportunity to have long boards if need be, but also it's a 22-inch drum sander that's open-ended, and so I can end up doing a 44-inch, up to a 44-inch board, doing it 2 passes. Okay. So I did something a little funky, but it actually will work for me. As I came off my NordFab ductwork, I came down off the Y, put in a blast gate, and then I decided to come off with a 45 and a machine fitting, and came up with a flexible hose, and kind of did a little bit of a rig job with some strapping that I had here, and then it comes down, back down to the drum sander. So I have a NordFab clamp system here. So all I have to do is remove the pin. As a matter of fact, I'll probably just take the pin out permanently and leave it out. And what that does, it keeps them locked if you don't want them to vibrate loose, and this is not going to vibrate loose. So all I have to do then is just do a quick disconnect on this, and this piece will come off. And then all I have here is this machine adapter that's duct taped to give it a nice, clean, tight seal to the dust port on the drum sander. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on following the instructions, and we'll put together this Powermatic drum sander. All right, so this is the box that came inside the crate, and outside of having the set of instructions, let's go ahead and unwrap what we've got in here. You know, first thing we've got is some cards for, what is this? This is the warranty reply cards, if you will. And in this packet, they gave us 3 different owner's manuals, and they're looks like it's French or and German. I'm not sure. It's a couple different languages. Plus, they give you the English language card. So that's what you get in 3 manuals, and you get 3 registration cards. Looks like the top wheel. Let's go ahead and take this apart. Yep, that's the top wheel, which is the adjusting wheel. Put that off to the side. And inside of that is the little handle to go and do the turning as well. Next, they've got a packet of bolts, washers, looks like pretty much that's it. Hex bolts and washers in this packet. So I know what that's for. That's to assemble the outfeed tables. Next, take the cardboard out, recycle that. And we have a, looks like a side bracket or a side table, side piece. Put that off to the side. We've got a couple of those. Looks like a left and a right. Another bracket. And another bracket. Okay, looks like one of the outfeed tables. And a piece of cardboard. And lastly, another outfeed table. That pretty much is everything that's in the box. So let's go ahead and get this stuff out to be recycled in my recycle box. And then we'll get the instructions and start to see the step-by-step what we have to do to put this together. Okay, to start off, it says the hand wheel. We have to go and put the hand wheel onto the top, and then we put on the little spinning hand wheel so that it's easy to bring up and down. So before we start on that part, they've got some protective tape here that they have on this shaft. So I'm going to use my utility knife and get that tape off. Okay, so as I can see, the reason why they have that on there is that there's a keyway that's in this shaft that would lock into that wheel. So now I understand why they did that. Okay, so in the wheel they've got a set screw here, and the set screw is a 4mm set screw. So luckily I have a Festool Allen wrench set. I kind of lucked out with that. So that fits perfectly. I got a 4mm Allen wrench to be able to put this on. So we go ahead and put it on to the keyway. Okay, and tighten her up. Okay, nice and tight. Next, you take the handle, and there's some a threaded hole here on the wheel. We'll go ahead and put this on. And they say to use a 14mm wrench in order to tighten it to the wheel. Hand tighten it down and then make it nice and tight. Now it's easy to move that table up and down. All right, next we're going to attach these mounting brackets for the in-feed and out-feed table. So these are the front brackets. They are different than the back brackets, as you can see. And I've gone and prepped the bolts and washers that came in that packet. I kind of took the packet out, and I love these little hardware trays. Kind of help me to make sure I don't lose anything. But I got the bolts and washers ready to go with the lock washers, and let's go ahead and assemble these arms for the front and back. All right. Get a couple of these bolts with washers if I don't keep dropping them and losing the washers. Yeah. These four set up. And we'll go ahead and get these started. Luckily, you know how you always get different tools or different things throughout your lifetime, whether for the home or for the shop, and they always supply you with Allen wrenches, and I throw all those Allen wrenches in a bin. I'm glad I did that because I have the appropriate metric Allen wrench for these nuts, or for these bolts. Okay, got them down hand tight, and the instructions say attach the brackets to the sander, tighten screws with the 6mm hex wrench. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and tighten them down. Okay, those are tightened. All right, now we're going to go to the outfeed side and do the same thing for these brackets. There again is a left and right side to it. So if you get one of these, just follow the instructions. The photographs are pretty clear, as you saw in the video. So it gives you a pretty good idea of which way they go and what direction. Again, I'm going to finger tight these first. Okay, and the instructions say, let's see here, do both sets C and D, which is those are C and these are D. Go ahead and tighten them down. At least these are easier to get to. Okay, tightened. Okay, next it says to place the extension tables, which are part B, onto the table bracket C and insert the screws and washers. It does say here, note, to leave the screws loose for now. The next step will cover what we do and why they're loose. So let's go ahead and I've got my bolts ready to go and my wrench. And let's put on the back extension since I'm here anyway. Okay. Never easy to line these things up, especially when you can't see. And I don't feel like getting on my back. Okay, so it's on and it's loose, and it's mainly to provide adjustments. So let's go ahead and do the front. Okay, got my bolts. Got my wrench. And let's go and tighten these up. Put them on. And we'll hand tighten them as well. Okay. All right, that step is done. All right, next instruction is to take a level and put it onto the bed of the drum sander and let it extend over to the outfeed and infeed tables. And they're saying take 3 spots and get it to where the outfeed and infeed table is just slightly below the bed of the drum sander. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my woodpecker square, and I'm going to hold it up against the bed and make my adjustments accordingly. Okay. Okay, we got the tables on, and they are slightly below, I'd say a 1/16 of an inch is the target that I made, 1/16 inch below the actual bed of the drum sander. So it took a while, so I didn't record all that because it took probably about 20 minutes to go back and forth and get it done. The next step in the manual to assemble this, they say, is to go ahead and tighten up these lock bolts onto the rollers, because there's casters that are underneath this Powermatic base, and it's really nice. The casters only move one way, so it only moves the machine this direction. It will not move it this direction. You have to kind of pick it up or kind of slide it if you want to go the opposite direction. But I've already gone ahead and tightened up those 2 lock nuts on the caster. Next thing on the instructions, they say, is to go ahead and hook up the dust collection system, which I already covered earlier in this video, which is already completed and done. Next step is to go ahead and install sandpaper onto the drum itself. It comes equipped with 80 grit sandpaper. So let me go ahead and disconnect my hose, and we'll open up the lid here to access the drum itself. All I have to do is just take the clamp off, and it is done. Now, I may have to come up with a better way to hold this while I'm working on things. I'm thinking of putting a strap up here onto the wall, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and let it hang there. I'm going to take the clamp off so it doesn't fall off, and then that gives me access to the dust port. Here's a little locking lever that opens it up, and now we have access to the drum itself. Now, my machine's still not plugged in. I have it unplugged because we haven't gotten to there in the instructions. But what they are basically instructing you is to how to put this sandpaper on and off. So it's already on, so I'm going to take it off and then see how simple it is to go ahead and put on. I'll go ahead and videotape that without any editing as my first try putting it on. All right, let's go ahead and take off this belt and see how it comes off, and then we'll put it back on again. So we have to press up on this grip, kind of a spring loaded. I'm just checking it out. Okay, go ahead and remove it. Okay. Okay, so I got this unwound, and I'm going to point out a couple things. Here they got a mark, and that mark looks to be the width of the sandpaper that you want to put in. In other words, when we put it in, we want to make sure that that sandpaper is at the width of the edge to this mark, and before we start to wind it out onto the drum. So here they basically have a clamp. We go ahead and line up that mark, and then we'll go ahead and spin it around. So if you can kind of see, there's a clamping. We want to get it's pretty simple. It's just spring loaded. You can push it in, put the paper in, and let it go, and it automatically grabs it. So let's go ahead and put this sandpaper in, and we'll get it to about that size that they had, right about that mark. We'll go ahead and put it on. Okay. And we'll go ahead and zoom out. And we'll wrap the rest of this paper. They say leave about a little bit of a gap, like a 1/16 inch gap. Don't overwind it. In other words, don't wind it on top of itself. And then you come down, you have the same type of clip that's going to go inside, get mounted. Okay, that looks pretty good. I say you want about a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch gap over on this side. We pretty much have that. Okay. Well, that's how we put on the sandpaper onto the drum. Show you what it looks like here. Get some zoom out. So again, here's the tension pin. You have to get in there, release it, put the sandpaper in, and it. See if I can get a good shot there. I'm not going to get it. But I think you can get the idea. Okay. So, looks good. Well, next the instructions talk about electrical connections and grounding connections. It basically goes over the type of plug that you should use that comes with the machine. It is 110, it is not 220, and it kind of goes over if you have an extension cord, what size extension cord in amperage rating you should use. And you go, and that's the plug, and that's the plug. So it's a standard 110 plug that connects into the wall. It needs a 20 amp service, and they're saying a dedicated 20 amp service, which I've got. So that'll just get plugged into my wall there. And the next thing to do is to go ahead and start making some adjustments. So let me put this back into the tripod and we'll start working from there. All right, so the next step is the adjustment section of the instructions. And it says to adjust the depth scale. It says the depth scale indicates distance between the bottom of the sanding drum and the top of the conveyor belt. And adjustment is performed by zeroing out the scale. So what they're saying is take the adhesive strip on the drum, lower the sanding drum until it touches the conveyor belt. At that point, it should be zeroed, and then the scale here on the side of the machine would then show 0. So let's go ahead and bring the sanding drum down, and we'll make sure that it says 0 at the adjustment scale. Boy, this thing is nice and smooth, I'll tell you that. We are at bottom and it's exactly on 0. Now from here it looks like it's, from that angle, it looks like it's below 0, but it's not. If you look on straight on, it is right on to 0. Next it talks about tracking, and should the conveyor belt itself move from side to side, or too far to one side or too far to the other side. You have to remove these covers that are right here, and there's a couple of Allen screws on 2 sides, and when you remove that, it has adjustment bolts and nuts that you can do to track this belt so that it tracks evenly across the side to side. Okay, the next step is some magnetic tracking devices that are made out of ceramic that they talk about in the manual. Now I did have to get on the floor to do this. So it's up underneath this white block here is a ceramic block, and there's one on both sides, and it is magnetic. And what it does is it kind of tucks in front of or around that belt, so that it helps to keep the belt tracking appropriately without always trying to make fine adjustments. They say that in the manual that if it wears out over a period of time, then you can just take it off. It comes off magnetically, flip it around, it'll stick to the frame, and then you can continue using it for its flip side. After a while, when those are worn out, then you can just get another magnetic tracking kit from Powermatic. Now, what's interesting about this drum sander, which is the reason why I purchased this one above all others, is the leveling mechanism for this drum. And you can kind of see they go through the process here of how do you level it. So let me go ahead and put the instruction manual down. And what they tell you to do is to take the sandpaper off the drum and then get a block, like a steel block, preferably, I don't know, the way they showed in the picture was like inch thick by about 2 inches wide, about 6 inches long. But any kind of square block would do. And then you lower the drum on one side until the drum just barely touches and skims the surface of that block. Then come over here on this side, you do the same thing. And if it's out of parallel, if that drum is too high or too low on one end, here is your adjustment. You're actually making an adjustment. You can try to zoom in here. You're really making an adjustment here on the bed, not on the cantilever drum. And that's what I really like about this design. The cantilever drum stays put. There's no adjustment here. Your adjustment is made on this table, and then you bring the table up or down relative to making sure you're parallel to the drum. And it goes in pretty good detail regarding making adjustments with this lever. And it comes factory set, and we're going to test it. I'm not going to pull the paper off. I'm not going to I don't have a steel block here, but I am going to run as a test run a couple pieces of wood from one side to the other side, and then take my set of calipers and check out to see what the distance is. So that they go in pretty good detail within the instructions. Okay, the next thing they go over is the tensioning roller adjustment. There are two rollers, an in-feed and out-feed roller that actually holds your stock down as it goes through the in-feed. And they kind of go into some detail photographs or pictures, but right here is one of the adjusting screws, and here is let's see if I can zoom in, is the other adjusting screw. I'll try to get focused. So you have two there, and then you have the same type of adjustment right here, and one on the other side right there. So that's how you can you can set the tension of those two rollers. And it describes in the manual pretty good in detail that if you get a snipe, and anybody in woodworking, you understand what a snipe is. If you get a snipe at the front of the board when you put it in, then you have to adjust the front roller. If you have a snipe in the back, then you have to adjust the tension of the back roller. And lastly, before they get into the operations, on the back side of the drum sander is a compartment. You basically push up on that, turn the lever, open it up, and voila, you have a big storage compartment here. And for me, this is pretty much where I'm going to store I got extra sanding grits up to 220. That's where I'm going to go ahead and store my abrasives. My collection of abrasives is where I'm gonna keep in this little cubby hole. Really, really solid. I'm really surprised. All right, so the next thing to do is to go ahead and plug the machine in and start up the operation. Okay, so go ahead and zoom in. Okay, so they say to connect the power, turn on the main power switch. A display will illuminate and the racetrack may flash continually, indicating the emergency stop is still engaged. So we'll go ahead and turn on the main power, and it is flashing. It's flashing, as I said, because the emergency stop is on. It says to rotate the emergency stop D clockwise to disengage the stop. It disengages the stop, and it quits flashing. Turn the drum motor by firmly pressing the switch B. Illuminating J will run and on will illuminate. So we're going to go ahead and turn on. Okay, we'll do the drum motor first. You can see the drum motor is turned on, and you can see the circular pattern going around in circles. It kind of shows you that the drum is actually rotating. So here is the load factor. And the load factor will actually, let me see if I can go ahead and get a better view of that. Okay, that might be a better camera angle. So again, this turns on the drum. And this will show that the drum is actually on and is turning around. The feed logic here is how much tension it's taking to sand the piece, and of course it's taking nothing because there's really no friction whatsoever, so it's at the lowest bar. You turn off the drum sander by pushing that red button, and that'll turn off the drum sander. By pressing the emergency stop, that'll stop everything. So if you have the drum sander and the feed board, the feed table going, it'll stop it all. So let's go ahead and start the feed table. And this is how you start the feed table, is with the dial. And if you start the feed table up, it shows you the feed table is moving, and it'll tell you how many feet per minute. And there's adjustments that you can go meters per minute or feet per minute. You can really speed it up. That's about as fast as it's going to go, which is clocking in around 11 feet per minute. Looking at my table, the tracking looks pretty good. To turn on the belt, the drum sander, now you have the belt and the drum sander both rotating. Drum is on, belt sander is on. It's in inches, and the feed logic is showing that there's no resistance whatsoever, 1 bar. If you want to change from millimeters to inches, it's pretty simple. Here you zero out your actual workpiece. Stop everything. Emergency stop will stop everything immediately. Now the drum continues to rotate, so the drum doesn't have a brake on it, but the table stopped immediately. So the good thing about emergency stop, when you hit that, your work will stop. The drum may still make a few revolutions until the friction stops it. So the drum does not have a brake, but the table stops immediately. Turn it to the right to remove it. Again, it's not going to go until you turn it off, the feed table, and turn it back on. Resets from an emergency stop. Okay? And then you can run it again. Okay? So again, if you do an emergency stop, take an emergency stop off will not run the belt. You have to turn the belt off, which is the O position down here. Wait for it to quit blinking, turn it back on, and now your table will go ahead and run. So the best way to stop your table, turn it off. Another nice feature that the Powermatic 2244 has is what they call a feed logic. And feed logic is if you set your speed of your belt to be too fast because the amount of material you're trying to take off, it correlates with each other. If you're putting a lot of tension on this drum because you're taking a lot of material off and you have your belt feeding too fast, the computer in the Powermatic 2244 will automatically slow down the belt speed and in order to accommodate for the amount of material that you're taking off on the workpiece. That's really nice because otherwise you could burn up the motor, you could burn up the belt, and a lot of the new drum sanders have this type of logic built into them, but what I read on the Powermatic, I like that feature. They have a video on their website that kind of shows how the table feed was going in pretty fast. Feed logic kicked in because it went all the way up. It automatically kicked on and it slowed down the table to a safe rate. Okay, next they said to go ahead and in order to operate this, we want to bring the drum down to a piece of wood, and we'll bring it down until it touches. And I'm going to put the emergency stop on, and I'm going to bring this down until it touches the piece of wood. Okay, so now it's touching. I'm going to bring this out and bring it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm just barely touching the piece of wood. Okay, and then I'm going to go over to the control panel and zero it out. Now we know it's zeroed, and if I want to now take this down to a level, I can now go down and take off whatever amount of material I want to take off. So if I want to take off, let's say a 32nd of an inch off of these boards, then I would put this to 0.3125. It would be negative because I'm going down below it, 0.031. 0.031 is it. Okay? So, what we're going to do now is go ahead and start up the drum, and then we're going to start the feed rate. They said the feed rate to run about 40 to 50% of its capacity. So, let's go ahead and take off the E-stop. I'm going to start up my belt. I'm going to sneak over here. And I'm going to run about 50%. So if you recall, the fastest run speed was 11. So 5.5 would be about half. I'm going to run it probably around 5 feet per minute. Again, in the book, in the manual, they tell you you're really going to have to kind of work with this and play with it and see how well it works. So let's go ahead and we'll start the drum. And I'm going to start my shop collection. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed 2 boards on each side, and I'm going to mic it and see how well they are, how flat they are. You can see the feed logic saying, okay, the tension's pretty good. So I have the right speed for the feed at about 5 feet per minute. Okay, I'm turning everything off. I'm using the larger piece on the right side and the smaller piece on the left side. And boy, it did a really good job. It really took it down. This is 80 grit sandpaper that's inside the machine, and this is actually Paduke, so it's a very hard African wood. I'm using this to trim out my shop, if you've seen other videos I've done. So we're going to go ahead and mic this. My micrometer digital mic is actually blinking because the battery is about ready to die. But this side's miking, take it on the end. This side is miking about 0.709. And this side's miking 0.707. Wow, that is really, really good. That's 0.02 of an inch difference, with this left side being just a hair lower. That means if I really wanted to adjust this bed, I would lower this bed by 0.02 of an inch. But for 0.02 of an inch, that's pretty darn good. They say when you are going to do something wider than 22 inches, that you really do want this end of the bed to be a little bit lower, because you don't want to create a line when you flip your piece around. But that's pretty good. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take off a little bit more, and we'll go to 0.07, and see if the feed logic kicks in. So we'll take this down to 0.07, and we'll go to 0.08. Okay, 0.081. And we'll go ahead and start up the dust collection and give that a try and see what happens. We'll see if the feed logic kicks in. Put that at around 5 feet per minute. Start up the drum. It's still pretty good. Feed logic is very close to turning on and slowing the belt down, but it actually didn't do it. No snipe on the front or the back. We'll mic this out again. The right side's miking 0.665. Left side's miking .665. Wow. I mean, you can't get any better than that. And the collection did pretty good. I mean, there's obviously some sawdust residue onto the drum, which you're going to see. But looking at my hose, you can really see a lot of the sawdust that's in this pipe. So it's really taking the sawdust out of here. Well, that's it. We have it all assembled. We've got it run in. We've got it trued up, and I'm ready to go ahead and start using this as one of my key tools in the wood shop. So thanks for joining me on the video today. If you liked the video and it was helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up. And also, if you'd like to see additional videos, please subscribe to my channel and you'll get notifications of any new videos that I post online. So thanks again for watching the video and for sharing this experience of putting together this Powermatic 2244. And I look forward to seeing you again in my next video. Take care, and we'll see you around the block.